According to official data released, Nigeria has slipped into a recession after its gross domestic product contracted for the second consecutive quarter. Africa's biggest economy is in recession for the second time since 2016, and the worst economic decline in almost 4 decades. The National Bureau of Statistics announced a week ago that the nation's GDP recorded a negative growth of 3.62% in the third quarter of 2020. The country had earlier recorded a 6.10% contraction in the second quarter, and this has led to the shortage of food and the increase in price of foodstuffs in the country, causing the nation the problem of food insecurity. Good day and welcome to Christians in Politics program, reaching you from the ACNN studio here in the nation's capital city, Abuja. I am Smart Simon, and we shall be looking at the topic, recession and food insecurity in Nigeria. And with me to discuss this topic is Mr. Chinedu Felix Okpara, a farmer and the founder, EduLead Development Initiative. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Welcome our viewers.
And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And today being 1st of December, let me say Happy New Month to you.
Yeah, it's true. Happy New Month as well.
And Happy New Month to our viewers in Nigeria and all over the world.
Yeah.
Now, to set the discussion rolling, we would like you to start by enlightening us on what recession means.
Okay. Well, to be able to do that in a layman's term, so that just everybody can understand, recession simply means when economic activities of a particular country is going down, like they rightly said, by informing us that once the GDP of a particular country, which of course means the gross domestic product of that country, which is the value of all products,
yes,
value of the real original products that are produced in that country, begins to go down, then you are now to say that that particular economy is going into recession because the GDP of the particular economy that we are talking about is no longer moving as should be, but instead it's going down. So they are not making profit, but instead they are really going into serious losses. Okay. So that in a layman's term defines what recession is. And then of course when you are talking about that in Nigeria, you're talking about production, you're talking about real value in the market that we have today, and you begin to see that Nigeria is not making profits even in the stock exchange market, and you say that is recession. Okay. And then when it happens consecutively in 2 quarters. So for now, we've seen that this is the second quarter that we are entering now, and instead of things getting better, it's not getting worse. So we are in deep recession right now.
Okay.
Deep recession.
How bad is this recession?
Very deep recession right now, because when you look at the surrounding factors around it, you can't really see the way out of it tomorrow. So we are in deep recession.
Okay. All right. Now, let's now go to your field, talking about food.
Yeah.
All right? You are a farmer and a founder of EduLead Farmers Initiative. All right. Now, what is the meaning of food security and food insecurity?
Okay. When I try to explain things, I like using layman term.
But there are technical people that may also follow.
You understand? So when you talk about food security, it simply means that food that we eat is available.
Okay.
Adequate food, nutritious food is available to all people. No, I did not say to some people.
Okay.
To all people. Food is a fundamental human right.
Yeah.
So you begin to talk about food being secured when everybody have access to food.
Yeah.
And then of course it's measured with pillars. When you begin to talk about food being accessible by everyone, nutritious food, I keep saying, food being affordable by everyone, food being utilized health-wise, so everybody have access to adequate nutrition. So when you talk about these pillars being out there for everybody to access, then you can now say that yes, truly everybody is food secure. But then in the other way around, when food is not available for people to access, it's not accessible to them, it's not affordable, and they are not even eating well, then everybody is food insecure. So that's simply what food security means. If it is accessible to everyone, then food security, can be said to be in place.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Chinedu Felix Okpara, how can we link recession to food insecurity?
In so many diverse ways, because they say a hungry man is an angry man. If you look at our economy today, why this is so sad is because in 2016, when recession happened, they said it was because of the downsizing in oil price that led Nigeria into recession. And then they began to look for various ways to not allow that happen again. And one of the things that government said was that they were going to come up with policies that will help in diversifying economy so that we can shift focus from the oil sector and begin to look inwards. And one of the sectors that they actually recommended was agriculture, given to the fact that we have natural resources and fertile lands to farm and what it takes to actually use agriculture to build economy. But then, ever since then, it has been lip service.
Okay.
Because they are talking about diversifying, and in saying diversifying, insecurity crept in and then began to affect agricultural production. And that problem wasn't tackled. Because up till now, we are still having issues. Just a few days ago, we saw how farmers were beheaded somewhere up there in the north. This has been, it didn't just start today, it has been happening. And then you also talk about the issue of climate change, which has also in recent times been affecting agriculture. And of course, every responsible government will want to see that one particular thing that they are being hopeful for to be able to help the economy, to hold it so dear and do whatever it takes to be able to use that particular sector to actually have as a fallback. Because if you're saying oil is no longer paying, but then agriculture can pay. Because everyone had seen that agriculture can actually be used as a base to measure Nigeria's budget because of the promises in it. But now, you are not doing the needful in this sector. People are hungry. People are not able to afford square meal. So many businesses in Nigeria depends on agriculture for their raw materials and even for supply chain and all of that. And this particular sector that almost everything depends on is just lying there.
Exactly.
Why wouldn't we be in recession? We saw it that oil affected us the first time, and then we did not prepare ahead because some people will begin to say, yes, we had Corona in recent times. But then when Corona came, it was just a matter of preparations to say, once we are out of Corona, we are going to have crisis. But then how do we come out of this crisis using agriculture? How do we ensure that people will not continue to be hungry? Those plans were not there. They came up with plans, but nobody actually saw them, in actual sense, playing out. So you can link the two of them. You don't need any big glass to begin to say, can you link food security to recession? Because when people are not able to afford square meals, when people are laid off, people are laid off from their jobs because companies can no longer carry them. People moving goods can no longer move goods because people cannot go to farm because they are scared of Corona, they are scared of insecurity and all of that. There will be hunger in the land. The economic activities will decline. And then recession will creep in.
All right, thank you so much. Now, being a farmer, this is coming from you. It seems to me you are already expressing disappointment that the government has not done well in the area of agriculture, agricultural policies, and what have you. You have earlier said it was all mere lip service. Now, as a farmer, was there in any way this administration encourage what you are doing, so that through what you're doing, there will be food available in the market and all that. Was there in any way that the
Well,
government encouraged you as an individual?
When I'm answering that, I won't just say to me, because I know I speak on behalf of a whole lot of young persons like
Okay.
myself who are into agriculture.
Okay.
I would say that government has really not encouraged us.
Okay.
Because a lot of advocacies have been carried out down to the doorstep of government to say these are the issues that farmers are facing. Every farmer needs to be resilient, not just to insecurity, to climate change issues. And there's been several recommendations as to how government can help. Now you're talking about climate change affecting all of us. And we are saying help us assess resilient inputs that even with flooding, with high temperature and all that, we'll still be able to farm. We don't have access to that. We don't have access to fertilizer. We don't have access to even the tractors that will help in mechanization, in this agriculture we are talking about. Because we'll say, if we're able to say that we are going to feed the country and use agriculture to boost the economy, we have to do it differently. We have to utilize the burden, strength of young people out there, of course, that makes up more of our population, and encourage them to go into agriculture. How have government encouraged young people to go into agriculture? How have you been able to lay out policies that are youth-friendly? For you to say, come out of school, leave white-collar job, and pick up this sector, and you will do well for yourself, earn a good livelihood, and help our economy. Have governments done that? No. So they come out, they say they are doing that. I give you an example. So recently, just after Corona, government came up with a policy, and then, of course, a scheme to say that they were going to give out some funds for people who are doing small businesses, particularly in agriculture, supported by CBN. And there's always this issue of hijacking. So the people that are there in their need of these particular funds to be able to boost what they are doing, for the ones that it will never get to them. So you find out that every young person, every rural woman there that is into agriculture is still where they are, struggling with markets, access to markets, struggling with processing, struggling with storage and preservation, struggling with even inputs. How then have government encouraged, farmers to be able to say, okay, we are going to use these people to build economy? So you see that the gap is just so wide. So I'm not just talking about myself, because for me, we have been doing what we have been doing on our own. We have just continuously been devising means to survive in this terrain that is very difficult to navigate. And until government wakes up, maybe someday we are hopeful that they will wake up. But for now, they are not helping us. We are not seeing the help. They are only telling us that they are helping, but we've not really seen that help where it is playing out. Because if it is really playing out, of course it will reflect in the economy. You will see people not being hungry. You will see people not being jobless. You will see people rushing to pick agriculture as a means of livelihood. But it's not encouraging. It's not appetizing. Because it's just like somebody driving, let's say the latest one in town is Uber. And then people are telling stories how they are making hundreds of thousands in a week, in a month, and all that. And you see a whole lot of young people trooping into that area. Everybody wants to drive Uber because they are seeing it, they are hearing it. But we that we are doing agriculture, can we actually come out to say government's policies are actually helping us to access international market, to access local market here, to be able to process our produce, and a whole lot of activities lined up in the value chains of agriculture? How then can we now go from here to say, yes, truly, government is with us in moving this sector forward?
Thank you so much. It's quite a very pathetic story.
It is, really.
Sharing with us this morning. Now, let's go ahead with our discussion. Now, what will you say is the cause of recession and food insecurity? I'm going back to that because I want you to mention it in clear terms. Maybe they are listening and they will get to know that these are actually the problems. They might know, but we need to remind them.
Personally, I would say I wouldn't want to mention Corona, because I know that everywhere in the world, everybody have been saying Corona was the major issue that affected economies in recent time because of the lockdown and all of that. But again, there's an adage that says when an ant bites you first time, you take caution.
Yeah.
This is not the first time that we've entered recession. And the issues are there. We saw that this is an economy that was so over-dependent on the oil sector. And we've seen that going with the way things are going, that oil is no longer going to sustain us. So government wasn't ready. Yes, corona could be there. Climate change issue could be there. Issues of conflicts and insecurity could be there. These are factors. But to an extent, one would have said we needed to see some level of preparedness at the government side to say, okay, this is how we can cushion this, maybe if it comes.
Yeah.
But we actually did not see that. And why I'm actually saying this way is because I'm a farmer. I have a fish farm, and I think within the period of lockdown, we had lots of fishes in the farm, like plenty. We supplied to hotels and gardens and restaurants and all of that. Now, because of lockdown, there was nowhere we could go to sell our produce. So they were there, and we saw ourselves running into loss. And then we started thinking, instead of allowing our efforts to waste because we are on lockdown, one thing we could do is to think of a way to go into processing immediately. That will help us to sort the issue of losses, and then of course in preservation we can even advise.
Mr. Okpara, please hold your thought. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we will continue with our discussion on telling us what government should do to enable the farmers be able to make food available in the market.
We don't have leaders who have the heart to attend to the needs of their citizens. And so they have not put in place what will help in times like this. If you don't have a buffer, you have not stocked anything, in the days of famine you cannot run back and say, let us augment for the need of the people. So you have food crisis due to excessive rain and flooding that has eroded a lot of farm implements and crops from the farm, and many farmers today don't have anything, and there is cry all over the place. But over the years when we had plenty, like the days of Joseph, no leader is thinking about let us save for the rainy day. And so that's, for me, that's one of the reasons why we're in this kind of mess, being faced with a crisis in food. And is a very big sign of the kind of leadership that our country has.
Well, recession is always as a result of economic meltdown. Each time we're experiencing a dive in the indices of the economy, in terms of production, in terms of labor, and other factors that affects production, then we stand a chance of going down the other way. But there is, all hopes are not lost. Okay? All we have to do now is to seek the face of God. Because this pandemic has really affected every other aspects of our economic endeavor. You name it. But, well, with the vaccines coming out now, by the special grace of God, and then observing all the observables in terms of, the measures put in place to be able to curtail the spread. Wearing face masks just like I'm putting on, sanitizing your hands and social distancing and all that. I believe we can be able to cut down. Then with the incoming of the vaccine, as a matter of fact, okay, the vaccine is not to cure. Vaccine is to prevent. Remember, now it is left for us to be able to really observe other aspects that has to do with making sure that this pandemic is kept, away from us. Like I mentioned earlier, social distancing, washing of hands, wearing face masks, and all that. And now with that, I think we can be able to do a lot better.
It's quite challenging to know that farmers are facing a lot of challenges in the country, and I would say that it's very possible for them to overcome those challenges. It will be solved by looking towards climate smart agriculture. In every challenge there will always be a solution, and to me I believe that with the help of the government and even non-governmental organizations, these farmers can be supported to go into climate smart agriculture. By climate smart agriculture, I will suggest something like greenhouses. Greenhouses will help these farmers develop climate resilient farms that can thrive despite the harsh weather or floodings that we are experiencing in the country.
Well, one thing we should bear in mind is, as children of God, we should not depart from being close to God at all times. What we are facing in Nigeria, in short, all over the world now, is highly spiritual. Vis-a-vis the pandemic that is ravaging the whole world, the insecurity, in short, let me just put it bluntly, the wickedness that is perverting the society as a result of our inability to come together as children of God. It's like we are veering off from the course which has been set for us by Christ. Now, the insecurity we're experiencing in the country has a lot to do with forces beyond human control, but it is not beyond God's control. And I believe that if we realize that we are human beings and that we are here to love, the agape love, the love that Christ gave us through his death on the cross, that love ought to permeate the society. The food insecurity is as a result of our inability to come together and experience what we are passing through as human beings in the body of Christ. In the secular world, the political angle of it is also a problem. We have different parties, various parties, but the thing we forget is that we are one. If we channel our resources to agriculture, if we channel our resources to the economy in providing for everybody, irrespective of your creed, I think we will go a long way in handling some of those issues.
And before we went into that break, we were looking at, our guest in the studio is telling us what government should have done to assist the farmers in order to avoid the food insecurity and, of course, the recession that we have slipped into. Mr. Chinedu, we want you to continue with that point that you were making before we went on that break.
Okay, so yeah, I was saying that there are diverse measures that, of course, governments can adopt to, help alleviate first the issue of food security. Because now we've seen the issue of insecurity around the country that is not helping farmers to probably go to farm the way they should. And I think we've called on government enough to see how they can be proactive in coming up with other measures that will still help people farm and be able to feed themselves. Like I said earlier, one of the pillars of food security has to be the food being accessible. you know, and because if food is accessible, everyone has the food, then the issue of inflation, which of course is one of the factors that causes recession, won't even be there. If I have rice in my house, why do I need to go to the markets to buy rice? So we feel that first, let government think of ways to actually make agri more appealing to young people who have the energy to actually go to farms, and maybe help find out ways that states can own up agriculture, because I know that OLOP is lying there. There's a project that Medan came up with some time ago, one local government, one product, and that was supposed to solve the issue of people being so dependent on other states to produce what they eat. And if such things, you know, can be revisited, we can see that states can actually, within their states, produce what they eat. Because in times like this, you make do with what you have. If I need to have carbohydrates in my diet, it's not just rice that gives carbohydrates. Yam is there, cassava is there. So while government is trying to see how they can, you know, solve the issue of insecurity, solve the issue of climate change, yes, of course, we have been calling that, okay, teach people how to farm resiliently and climate smart way. That in that way, they're able to produce nutritious food that are also resistant to climate change. But then let states begin to see how they can look inwards to resources they have in abundance that can also sustain them. So the issue of oil in states that have such fertile land that can, you know, farm oil, they will do that without having to depend on another state to bring oil for them before they can feed. With states that can actually try rice, Abakaliki has rice in the southeast. Now we don't have issues of flooding, you know, that we will say will make Abakaliki not to farm rice that will sustain southeast. We don't have issues of flooding in some parts of east that will stop particular places to not farm cassava that will sustain people in the southeast. And then, of course, the list is just so long. Why can't we now begin to look inwards? And this has to do with that proactive measure, you know, I was talking about. Yes, we've seen that Corona was there, but then Corona didn't stop people from eating. Corona didn't stop people from going to farms after the lockdown and all that. So if we continue to keep counting our losses, we are never going to break through. We are never going to come out of this issue. So that's why I kept saying, for me, it's not just, you know, keep talking and mentioning coronavirus. Yes, it is there. We are out of the lockdown and we've seen the level of impact. But where do we now go from here? We cannot keep sitting down and keep folding our hands and keep looking at what tomorrow might bring. And people are dying out of poverty. People are dying out of hunger. People are having severe health issues because they cannot feed well. How can we continue this way? And we can only bet call on government for interventions. And the simplest intervention that won't cost anything is to ask state governments to look inwards the resources that they have in abundance and begin to produce them. Because yes, we saw climate change play out, and it didn't just start this year because there was Corona. The issue of climate change have been there.
Yes.
And then there's been several recommendations as to how we can, you know, embrace climate smart and resilient agriculture. What is stopping us from embracing that?
People are trying to now do electric cars to avoid emanating of...
Exactly. We are saying, let's go green. Let's go smart agriculture. Let's see how we can, you know, farm resilient, smart agriculture that will not harm the environment, but of course, environment will not harm. But then we are still able to feed. The recommendations are all there. The blueprints as to how to go about them are all there. All we simply ask is just put a small thing on the budget, retrain farmers on these new techniques that now exist, and then let's all go back to farm. And with all of this, we won't be having issues of food security, because if a household is able to farm for their household and have adequate nutrition, the issue of inflation will drop, because that is actually another issue. Nobody regulates what happens in market. So tomorrow, because I feel I'm the one who has fish, I will just go make a few calls to my colleagues and say we are selling 2,000 today. And then nobody comes to ask us, why are you selling 2,000?
I was even going to ask you.
So no, these are
there any way farmers are taking advantage of the situation right now?
If they are, you won't blame them, because the truth is, every farmer also requires some form of raw materials to go into what they are going into. You need some implements, you need inputs, and then you want to buy whole, and they are telling you that cost of metal purchase and all that is so high. So you see that cost of production is what is actually the bedrock of all of this problem. A fisherman wants to buy feed, and the cost of feed is so much. In fact, one of the things I was saying earlier that I feel it might not actually apply, but my point here is when measures call for proactiveness, you stand up to it. What we have here in this country right now, recession, calls for proactive measures to come out of it. When we saw that cost of feed was so high in the market, we thought about it that, okay, the fishes that we are rearing is highly carnivorous ones, and there's a fish they call tilapia that produces every month. What did we do? We had to carry tilapia to breed them together with the ones we are producing that is called catfish. Now, catfish feeds on the small ones of the tilapia, thereby reducing cost of feeding, like almost to minimal. Now, when you degot the fish that you want to process, the intestine that you remove to throw away, and then of course, even in the market, they remove the intestine of chicken and all that, we'll pack them and breed them to form maggots, which is one of the protein content that fishes require. And that's in itself, these are just things that ordinarily doesn't cost you much to do. You don't even need money to do them. So you just bag all of these excretes, and then they turn to maggots, and then you use it in turn and feed your fish. The tilapia, they keep reproducing every month. They won't harm the big ones, but the small ones that come, they feed on them. So when you now give feed, instead of spending 3 bags of feed, you're spending, let's say, half bag. That is you being innovative, creative as to how to come out of your situation. You cannot say because there's inflation, because there's recession, let me now fold up and pack up my business because I don't know. No, that is the same thing that applies to government here. Why can't you come up with ways that will help us out of the situation that we are in? For how long can we continue in this whole storytelling that we are working on it, we are coming out? Let us see it play out visibly. Let everybody see it, that this is where we are heading to. And then, of course, when people see that we are headed in the right direction, they will join you and even come up with ways that will even help as well. But right now, I think everybody is almost helpless because you're struggling to feed. The job that you are in today, you're not even sure of it because tomorrow they might ask you to stay at home, that they are not able to pay you, and all of that. So you see that all of the problems that we are outlining here still grows back to leadership. Until our leaders stand up to their responsibility to do the right thing, we will still be running around a circle.
All right, thank you very much. Now, as a farmer, is there anything farmers can do and to solve these food insecurity problems that we have in our country, bearing in mind that the trade of farmers' life in the recent time is just something else? You've just mentioned what happened on Sunday where 43 were killed. Some say it's 66. People are busy arguing about the numbers. Even if it is one person that is threat to life, what do we do in this kind of situation to be able to solve this problem that we're in today?
Well, there's actually to an extent as to what a farmer can do. Because it depends on what area you're looking at. For instance, what is happening up there in the north, I have visited the north, especially to some of those farmlands that they have there, and you begin to realize that it's not within their control. Because you can actually tell when these cattle rearers will invade your farm. And then again, as a human, I don't know, after putting so much sweat, let's say in cultivating yam or rice or whatever, and then you just wake up one day and then walk into your farm and see a whole lot of cattle, grazing on your farm. Even if that's instinct in you that will spur up, some agitation, doesn't come. Naturally, it will just come, which is actually what leads to most of these deaths and clashes that we'll see. So, for me, when it comes to the issue of header farmer crisis or this banditry thing, that is solely government, because there's little farmer. Even if you say farmers should go and form themselves in clusters and maybe go to farm with vigilante, they might still come there and overpower them. We hear that some of them even move around with charms, and at times they even come in the night. So until government finds a way to address the security issue for up there in the north, that issue might not go away. But then if you're coming down to possibly down south and the eastern part of Nigeria, where we have relatively peace for farmers, you know, then you can now begin to encourage farmers to think of how to, first of all, form themselves in clusters, and then see how they can not just depend on one value chain in agriculture, just plug into 1, 3, 4 value chains in a particular farming area that they have chosen, so that it doesn't affect them so much. Like I have mentioned, that oftentimes we've seen that farmers have issue of production. That's why most of them will just manage and stop at production gates. Some will thrive and get to processing, while some, the issue is just there, the market, and then middlemen is there to deal with them. So if actually as a farmer you are thinking of how you can survive and make good money where there's no security actually as a threat, then you should begin to see how you can plug, you know, to some of the value chains that will eliminate some of the things that will help you incur losses. Which one of it, the most one that is like prevalent, is the issue of middlemen buying off your products to go and make all the profits. So, and that can only happen if we farm in cluster. If you identify people who are doing the same thing with you, that helps you, give you direct access to markets, helps you in learning new ways to improve on what you're doing, particularly as regards to processing. Because of course, the processing, the packaging is what is appealing to public to say, okay, they want to try out what you are bringing. So for me, I will advise that anybody who wants to go into agriculture shouldn't just think of stopping at the production gate. If you actually want to survive, you shouldn't think of stopping at the production gate. From the production gate, take it down the line. Look at 1, 2, 3 value chains that you can plug into. You don't have to actually depend on government. Try to do the one you can. By the time you hit the market and profits rolls over, I can attest that there's profit in farming. There's huge profit in farming. I used to tell people that there will come a time in Nigeria where farmers will own farm blocks, the way they have oil blocks. It's going to come, but then it's for you to position yourself to actually do that and be there. So let's learn to farm differently. Let's leave the traditional ways. It's not a must that everybody must be at that production gate. Go and wait at the processing gate, wait at the market gate, wait at the retail gate. It's just so long that can allow all of us to thrive, and of course help the country to be food secured.
All right, thank you so much. Now I see this as an opportunity for you to be able to tell the government what you think they can do to be able to solve this problem, because you've already said there is barely nothing a farmer can do to be able to stop this insecurity in the country, this threat to life, a situation where farmers will go to farm and they won't return because they are being killed. That will hinder so many others from going out, from going to their farm. So what do you think the government can do to be able to solve the problem of food insecurity?
Well, that discussion is just a long one, because it's not like they don't know what to do. When you come to the issue of farmer header crisis, it has to do with grazing, which can be attributed back to climate change. Because before now that we didn't have all these issues of climate change, we are not having all these issues. But because up there, they hardly will see where to graze. And the only green place they now see to graze is, you know, food that people have actually taken a whole lot of stress and energy to cultivate. So if governments can actually look into the recommendations that have to do with ranching, so that people can keep their cattle in a confined environment, this issue of header crisis will be eliminated. Like, it's just that simple. I want to rear cow. I rear it in my compound. The same way people rear fowl. Imagine when you are in an environment and you're seeing litters of chicken feces everywhere. It's not healthy. And also, people learn to keep their fowl in a confined environment. People keep their goat in a confined environment. Horses in confined.
Why can't we
do the same thing for cow? Like, is it that difficult? It is not. But they deliberately have refused to pay attention.
And other countries of the world, I think that it's not Nigeria only that rear cow. There are countries of the world, even in Europe.
They're even doing far more than we are doing.
Exactly.
And their cows look healthier than even our own. So you see that it's just, it goes back to what I earlier said, that every problem that we have in this country is attributed to leadership. It's not because we don't know what to do, but just because of that will to actually do the right thing. And if they want to, they will. Maybe I want to use this platform. I would like to use this platform to also appeal to the church. Because when it comes to advocacy, it's a collective effort. We cannot say we are relenting. We cannot say we'll keep quiet. let's find a way to dialogue, to reach out to these people in power and find out ways that we can be part of the process that will help better things for the country. And of course, the church has a role to play. I might not have access to go talk to a governor, but of course, church as a group, as a body, can do that. And just by listing out things that because they are also accountable, to us, even as a church, because they are leaders to lead everybody, even the church. And it's only okay for them to listen to the people that they lead. So they might not probably listen to individuals, but church, I know that church has a role to play in making sure that they carry advocacy down to their doorstep. So I would like to really appeal, not just to our church, churches across the country, maybe under the umbrella of CAN.
Yeah.
Find out a way to see how we can dialogue with government so that we can see how we can lend our voice to get these problems to be solved once and for all. Because this issue of when you talk about how farmers can really survive and all that, the only issue that we have, which is imminent, is this issue of farmer header crisis. The issue of flood, it's out there, it's even open. You want to farm, embrace climate smart agriculture. You don't need government mostly to do that for you. It's something that you can even go and learn on your own. It's something that is even up there and on the social media, on the internet, that you can learn through a particular one and then see how you can apply it. So that one, to an extent, doesn't really require go, but it's issue of life. That is where we are, what we are talking about here, and which is where the chunk of the agricultural produce that we are talking about comes from. So it's not something I would say this is how farmers should go about it. Because if you have a gun, I don't have a gun, I cannot come and be telling you what to do with your gun.
Yeah.
That means you are the one who decides what happens to my life.
Exactly.
So it's only left for me to leave agriculture and go protect my life while you do whatever you want to do. But government have the power to stop you. So let the government stop them.
All right, let the government stop them. These hoodlums and criminals that are going about killing people, let the government stop them. Yeah. They have all that it takes to do that. Now, you are aware that Nigeria was declared as the capital of poor people in the world. And only of recent, we are told that among the top 10 poorest countries in the world, Nigeria is among the top 10 in the world. This is where we have found ourselves. Now, do you think Nigeria will get out of this recession and food insecurity, considering the increase of prices in the market? Just yesterday, I was trying to get beans that was usually 500. The woman insisted that it's 700. And I was like, where is the measure you're using? It's something very, very small, and it's 700 naira.
Yeah.
So in this kind of situation, what do we do? Do you think we can get out of this?
The thing is, there's already a blueprint as to how to get out of poverty. The Sustainable Development Goal, Goal 2, zero hunger, poverty alleviation, all the goals are all there showing pathways to address this issue. And it's just sad that as a country, we see the right thing to do, but consciously neglect to do that right thing. Because this issue of, okay, let me first of all talk about the issue of prices in the market. There are regulatory bodies that are set up by the government to make sure that things are done properly. Before you bring a product to the market, it follows through a channel.
Yes.
And then when it gets to the market, there are people who ought to decide at what price you are to sell.
Okay.
Now, governments cannot do anything in this area because you went to the farm, you bought the farmland yourself.
Yeah.
You bought the input yourself. You farmed, no fertilizer was given to you, and then you also took it to the market yourself. So you find out that it's difficult for them to actually tell you what to do with your products.
Price.
So I come to the farm and I feel, my gari is looking too yellow. This one I'm selling 300. Maybe others are selling 150. Nobody actually cares. But then there's Ministry of Trade and Investment, who has the sole mandate to actually help in regulating all of these things. In states, you have commerce and industry and all of that. So when it comes to market price setting up and all that, governments have maybe consciously shied away from that.
Yeah, because they are not subsidizing.
So leaving the ordinary
They were
man,
subsidizing petrol, and
Yeah.
they were able to say they
can't
were able to determine the prices.
Why can't they do the same thing for agric produce?
And that is where they should actually do something.
So you give subsidies to farmers, give them some, funds to actually produce enough, and then tell them at what price to sell. It's that simple. But instead, you give money to, I heard a story recently, one of these schemes, how governors will call the people who are in charge to tell them who and who to give the money. And these are people that don't just need, just because they made campaign promises to help them,
Yeah.
And the money is actually meant to, just what we are talking about, to handle some of these issues. But instead, they divert it somewhere else, leaving the farmer to decide his or her fate. So you find out that until they begin to do the right thing, we might not really come out of this. Because there's a clear pathway as to how to, navigate out of poverty. But instead, people keeps getting poorer and poorer. You go to the markets with 1,000, you're not even able to buy food that will feed your family. It shouldn't be so. Look at the forex exchange that we have now. $1 is now 500 naira. Why can't they, do something to ensure that even at the international market, we are able to compete effectively. Even at the local market, we are able to compete effectively. These are just things that are just doable. But like I said, everything is just linked back to leadership. Yeah. So until our leaders begin to actually do the right thing, we might not stop talking about poverty level, we might not stop talking about hunger issues and food insecurity.
All right, until the government decide to do what is right, we cannot get out of it. Okay, now your last word. Okay, what is your last word on the program regarding food insecurity in Nigeria?
Well, every platform I find myself, probably I have opportunity to talk to young people like myself. I always want to encourage each and every one of us to find a way to, take our life all by ourselves and not be so over-reliant on government. Issues of government can give headache, but then nobody said you can't live. It's only God who gives life, and it's only Him who gives the grace for you to live. So pick up yourself today, find how you can survive. Of course, pick agriculture. Agriculture is really interesting. It really pays. And agriculture can actually be a career. It can be a culture that you take up, to become and to have as your source of livelihood. So don't wait to say because we are in recession and then you'll be wailing and dying in poverty. Pick up agriculture today. If you don't know where to start, come to ACNN. We'll come and tell them what to tell you, to do. What I'm just trying to say is our lives are in our hands. Let's try and see how we can make the best of what we have today.
Okay, our life is in our hands. Let's get out and make the best of what we need to do today. With that, we want to thank our brother, Mr. Chinedu Felix Okpara, a farmer and a founder of EduLead Development Initiative. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your thought with us. Viewers, you have heard, government should do the right thing. Otherwise, we cannot get out of this recession and this food insecurity. Until we come your way again, same time, same station, next week. I remained Smart Simon.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests and viewers and does not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the Advent Cable Network Nigeria, ACNNTV.